everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today's project talk will be recorded and the video will be posted on the Innovate Bio website by the end of next week. Innovate Bio and this series of talks are funded by the National Science Foundation. My name is Dion Krupa and I am the program manager with the Innovate Bio grant at Austin Community College in Austin, Texas. Before we begin, I have some housekeeping announcements. Today's presentations will be back-to-back with a joint Q&A at the end of the second presentation. Please feel free to use the chat box to jot down questions, and additional information on either of today's ATE projects can be found on the Innovate Bio website, which I will also drop a link in the chat box. And then lastly, we ask that you complete the evaluation survey before we conclude the day. The surveys are beneficial in helping us plan with future events. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our first Project Talk speakers. Faculty from Northern Virginia Community College, Dr. David Fernandez, the project PI and professor of biology. Dr. Xin Chow, the project co-PI and professor of biology. And Dr. Vijay Gandrati, associate professor of biology and biotechnology. The title of their presentation is The Noble Project, Cultivating Tomorrow's Biotechnology Professionals. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'll put it on slideshow. Okay. All right. So yes, this is sort of a joint presentation between myself and Dr. Zhou, who's going to be doing some of the slides, including the very next slide after the title slide, and then I'll kind of take it through the rest until the end and then tag him back in. So we are from Northern Virginia Community College. We have 6 campuses. Our biotech program is actually at our Manassas campus, which is where my 2 colleagues, that's their home campus. Mine is at the Alexandria campus. And so yes, indeed, our project is the NOVA Biotechnology Leadership in Education, or NOBLE project. So Dr. Zhou is going to give you an overview of the program, and then I'll kind of take you through the rest.
Hi, everyone. So these are kind of screenshots from our webpage. And the NOBLE Biotech program was founded in 2008. And it's designed to kind of train graduates for entry-level jobs in both biotechnology and also pharmaceutical companies, as well as in research institutions. And for students interested in higher degrees, most of the courses are kind of transferable to 4-year institutions. And we award 2 kinds of credentials. So one is a so-called associate in biotechnology. And this credential, this degree is offered to new NOVA students who just graduated from high school. And we require 64 credits, as you can see. And it usually takes students 2 years to finish. And we also have a biotech lab technician certificate, which is designed for students who come in with a higher degree. And it takes only 24 credits to graduate. And students usually finish it within 1 year. Dave?
Okay. All right, so we have a little bit of data for you guys, which is, as Xin mentioned, program started in 2008. So we have data on new enrolled students. So this is not the total size of the program, because some students are still, completing their classes and internships and that sort of thing. So just focusing on new enrollments as a cohort every fall. We have data going back all the way down to 2019. Notably, the pandemic took a big chunk out of biotech, which I'm sure is a common experience throughout the country because it's an in-person discipline primarily. A lot of this is wet lab sort of stuff. And so for sure, the pandemic took a big bite in the new enrollments. We were awarded our grant in May 2023, so we're coming up on 2 years now. So this is the beginning, of when we would have had any kind of impact. We have a nice cohort of new students this year, as you can see, and then we're on track to grow even more for next year. So we're excited, very excited about sort of the trajectory of new student enrollment. I'm going to kind of just quickly go through the project overview so as to not bore anybody, but just to kind of touch on the highlights, and then I'll give you details in a second. Number one is enrollment, right? So that's probably pretty common. So our main objective really is to grow the program, to help it revitalize after the pandemic, and just generally to grow it. We had originally planned to target minorities in STEM, women in STEM, and we still sort of do, but with the current political climate, this part of our grant is a big question mark. It's not the point of the grant, it is simply a part of the grant. And as of right now, obviously everybody's welcome in our program, and we're not going to like turn anyone away based on this, that, or the other, but we're kind of walking a little on eggshells, as I'm sure everybody else is, unless and until we're given guidance and to change our path. And so for right now, it's everybody, right? We're sort of targeting everybody, to include though dual enrollment students who are currently in high school but able to take Nova college courses. A lot of those are courses that they can take towards the biotech degrees, so that works out nicely. We're still trying to get veterans and sort of adult learners, the career changers. That cohort of folks, I think, is a key cohort, frankly, for biotech, because it's a growing industry, and maybe there's a lot of people who recently got laid off if they were federal employees, and so maybe they're looking for a career change, and frankly, biotech is a really good option, I think. And then obviously currently enrolled students of our own. So, I joked this week with my classes. I said I used to be a biologist, but now I'm a salesman, and I'm okay with that, frankly. It's so we're trying to recruit from our own classes, get them excited. I actually Jin and myself both teach cellular biology. So that's a good recruitment class, but also your basic, bio 101, or maybe even like a, chem 111 for us, which is like basically chem 101. Any sort of science class, I think, is ripe for trying to recruit students into the program. In addition to recruitment, we want to retain. I apologize if my voice is raspy. Half of that is lecturing and half of that is pollen, so I apologize for my voice. But going back to this, we want to retain our students. We want to give them something worthwhile once they're in the program, and to support them. And so that includes mentorship, which I'll talk more about what we're doing in terms of mentoring our students. Tutoring, we're trying to get a tutoring program off the ground. We have a current, he's actually one of my students who's currently going to try to do some tutoring for our biotech students. And then even this past week, he expressed interest in joining the program himself. So he will be an embedded tutor when that happens, which will be really cool. I'll talk a little bit about cohort meetings that we do almost monthly with our students, just sort of one of those check-ins. How you doing? You have any big problems? How are your internships going? That sort of thing. We have partnered with some groups, some organizations that do focus on minorities in STEM. And as I said, we're going to continue to do that unless until we're told we can't. So that's still going to be something we do for now. I'll show you some images on biotech field trips to companies. So we have lots of local biotech companies in the Northern Virginia or just DMV area. And so we've been making use of that for, field trips, and then obviously internships and networking, which I talk about down here. We are with our ear to the ground with respect to what the industry actually needs of our students. Are we meeting the industry demands for what they want from, biotech students coming out? To that end, our advisory board is essentially made up of industry leaders and professionals. We're trying to grow our advisory board as well to the better idea. Even our advisory board president co-teaches one of our classes. So that's really nice sort of cross-pollination there. We also, as pretty standard these days, I think we really focus on professional skills training, the so-called soft skills that are, as I'll show you a slide, almost the number one, if not the number one skill for students, frankly. And that's true, not just of biotech, that's sort of across the board. Okay, so how do we get business? How do we get attention to the program? I put in the chat box, I think it's still there. We have a testimonial video. It's actually one long video on our website, which is over 4 minutes long. But what I put in the chat box is we also have two different versions. One is just a couple of student testimonials, and one is sort of an overview of the program. So that's on YouTube. So we have a YouTube video that we had made. We have promotional items as, pretty standard, t-shirts, tote bags that we like to hand out whenever we can to prospective people or their parents, maybe if it's at a big event. Speaking of sort of bigger events, we've had a few. In fact, you can see the schedule here. I apologize that the green on green kind of disappears, but if you look at this on the left, you see we have 6 campuses, but one of those is our medical education campus. And so in this case, listed here are open houses at the 5 main campuses for Nova. And so we've been attending some of these, and there's one more to go, which is on the 24th. And so these are basically big open houses where we have, a table. We've got flyers that we spent, pretty good money printing out because they're high quality bags, t-shirts, all that sort of stuff. I see there's some chat. Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay. Oh yeah. Yes. I'm going to ask my colleagues. My 2 colleagues are here. I'm going to ask them if they can help me monitor the chat while I'm talking. Maybe we can post some requested information for people. This is Ace on the right. He's our Nighthawk, not ours, but he's our, the Nighthawk is the mascot for Nova, and so a big, scary looking. This thing was really big. Actually, I walked by it. It's really big. All right, so we've been doing recruitment at open houses for our campuses. Our colleague, Professor Gondrati, who's a senior faculty on our project, also attended a high school liaison summit in which it was attended by over 80 high school counselors to, bring this information about our program to the local high schools. So that was a big deal as well. That was on our biggest campus, which was Annandale. Full disclosure, if you look at the timestamp on this little image that I'm showing you here, yes, this was literally right before today's talk. My co-PI, Professor Zhao, actually went to a meeting. It was a Zoom meeting where we had our own Nova advisors attend, and since it was Zoom, it was recorded. So any of the advisors within our own school who weren't there, they can watch this later. So there was already about 50 advisors, even from this morning. Now they're more educated on our program because a lot of times students will say, I like biology. Oh, we have a bio major. We have an AS in biology, but maybe they're not very aware, and this is possibly true in other people's schools, that you even have a biotech program if it's a small one. And so to educate your own advisors to know, how to direct students who have interest into your program, I think is a big deal as well. Speaking of big deal, this one was Wednesday. This one was 2 days ago at what used to be called the Patriot Center, which is George Mason's, basketball arena. It's now called Eagle Bank Arena. And so there was a Northern Virginia Regional College Fair. It was attended by, I don't know the exact count, but it was a lot of people. It's probably in the hundreds, I'm guessing, something like that. I don't know. But, this is just one table. There were rows and rows of tables highlighting all different colleges and universities in the general area. And then, high school students would come in with their family. And so we had, I think we had 7 people representing Nova all across our big table, and biotech was represented there as well, talking to families, handing out swag, that sort of thing, and getting students, kind of interested. I will say this, speaking to how effective this may have been, going back to the point I was trying to make about adult learners, I do remember that we had a mother and a daughter, and the daughter seemed pretty interested in biotech, but what the mother said, she said, maybe you'll see me instead. or in addition, I'm not really sure. So actually even the mother was starting kind of thinking about, hey, biotech, maybe I can do that too, which I thought was really cool. Going back to when we kind of first started more of this recruitment, these were some biotechnology days. So bringing in students, in this case, these were college students who would come in and do some, pretty simple, mostly DNA-based experiments. And this is actually our lab on the Manassas campus. This is the biotech lab, so it's pretty well equipped. And so this was for a group called SACNAS, Society for Advancement of Chicanos and Native Americans in Science. So this is really cool. This young lady right here, who seems like she's happy to be there, she happened to be the local president of this group, and she also happened to be in my cell bio class at the time, and so it worked out well to spread awareness and that sort of thing. So that was back in 2023, and then of course, if you bring in college students, you better feed them. And so yes, we got them pizza and soda and all that sort of thing. I would draw your attention to the guy in the back, 2 thumbs up. So he seems like he had a good time. This was, of course, before we had our t-shirts. So we couldn't give them t-shirts yet. We haven't had them made. 2024, we did a similar sort of event with a different group called the Leading Ladies Initiative. Similar kind of experiments, but in this case, these were high school girls. And so they came and we did this. I think it was on a holiday, so bad timing on our part. So there weren't as many people. There was more than just what you see in this picture, but it was a little bit of a smaller event for us. This organization is interesting. It was developed by a mother and a son, I think. So this is the son in this picture right here. I think that's his mom. And they were from Uganda. And this group is actually operating in over 65 countries. So it's actually a really big group. And so, maybe these girls didn't know biotech was a thing or that it was something for them. And if they don't come to our program, maybe they go somewhere else and still get a degree somewhere. So that's still pretty cool. We did a virtual event, or rather we were guests at a virtual event in 2024 from the Biology Society, a student group at Nova. And this one was pretty well attended. And we just presented, via Zoom about our program and that sort of thing to Nova, mostly bio major students. And then also one more organization, actually we have 2 more organizations to talk about, but one more is called Women in STEM, or they just abbreviate it YSTEM. The name is a bit of a misnomer because these are also high school girls. They're not quite, past 18 yet, but maybe they will one day become women in STEM. And so what they did is they invited us to do an industry and nonprofit panel where the girls were asking questions. We all sort of presented our story, but the girls were asking questions, about challenges in getting to your whatever point in your career, obstacles you had to face, advice, recommendation, that sort of thing. So we were honored to have participated with that as well. That was earlier this year. All right, our biggest organization with whom we have formed a relationship, in fact, was a formalized partnership, and they are called Involve. And so also, geared towards women in STEM. I will talk about their participation with our project. It's pretty extensive. This is their website. Their link is just involveme.org, involveme.org, all one word. They're pretty phenomenal. Their founder and CEO is co-teaching our capstone seminar course, which I'll talk briefly about in a second. And also for 2 semesters now, she has been running our cohort meetings and doing our professional skills training largely. So that's been a big deal for us. More along the lines of courses like the capstone seminar that I'll talk more about and that I just briefly mentioned. Even before we got funded, we were already trying to develop, classes that more align with industry needs. And so we do have already completed a Bio 165 course, Principles in Regulatory and Quality Environments for Biotechnology, that our advisory board has been our advisory board president has been instrumental in revamping to better fit with FDA regulations so that our students come out of this with a pretty good grasp on those regulations. So a lot of this is for retention. Like I said, once the students are in your door, how do you keep them interested and that sort of thing? Well, so what's the big demand now? we can teach them the technical skills, the lab sciences, but at the annual PI conferences in DC, attend some of these conferences, attend some of these talks, and again, you will hear emphasis on soft skills or professional skills. So I find it really interesting. I took this picture from one of those talks. I think this was in 2023, actually, where on the right, it's like manufacturing, troubleshooting, robotics, cybersecurity, digital record keeping, that sort of thing. But before even safety, usually you say safety is our first priority in any kind of business, but even before safety was listed, soft skills. I thought that was really interesting. And so to that end, in 2023, we actually had, when we were still trying to develop what our cohort meetings would look like and our professional skills training would look like, I invited a former student of mine, also from our cell biology class, who shared her professional skills experiences going from a student whose her family wasn't that supportive of her career choices or her educational choices. She didn't let that stop her. She actually ended up not only working in a dentist's office, but also getting enough lab skills. She got an NIH summer internship, and she is currently at Yale right now pursuing a medical degree. So her goal is to be a physician scientist, probably an MD, PhD one day. But so she, shared with our group sort of professional skills outside of the lab sort of thing to help her get to that point. However, we've developed since then, and this is an example of a cohort meeting with professional skills training. So this is Faye O'Brien, Dr. O'Brien, the CEO and founder of Involve that I mentioned. We partnered with her, and she co-taught one of our courses, but then is also leading professional skills training. I'll show you some data that was developed from some of these meetings as well. So it's been really fruitful to have that relationship. So some of the data that came out of those meetings, this isn't, all of it, but just to give you an idea of some numbers we can sink our teeth into. A lot of the professional skills training that she tailored for us had to do with things like task distribution, communication, and conflict resolution when you're working as part of a group. So students, sometimes that's a pitfall working in groups. How efficient are you in getting your work done? And then are you even aware of best practices? So these data were taken from sort of the midpoint semester. I think she called them like reflection sessions or something like that, where she's asking students to reflect on their experiences. And so on a scale of 5, these were sort of the average scores out of 5 on these particular key factors. And, obviously you see there's room for improvement because it's not all 4.9s or something, but it gives you an idea of where our students have been and hopefully have been helped from these meetings. And then also, this is a word cloud. I really like word clouds. I hope you do too. I think word clouds speak to me because your eyes are naturally drawn to the biggest words or the brightest colors. And what I find really interesting, this word cloud was also taken from those reflection sessions. The biggest word I see is the word team. And I was looking at this morning about some of the smaller words, and I find it interesting. Like, here's the word daunting. There's the word daunting. Here's the word confusing. And I'm happy to say these are tiny. So if you're unfamiliar with how word clouds work, they're basically graphs. Instead of showing a bar or a slice of pie, you're just showing how big the word is based on how many times students use these in free responses. So if daunting and confusing are small, team, communication, group, project. I wish the word think was a little bigger. I'll be honest about that. But, a lot of this really does speak to, hey, maybe we are actually reaching them and helping them with teamwork, group work, and just professional skills in general. Speaking of professional skills, I don't have a slide about it, but on May 1st, we're going to be doing some mock interviews for our cohort as well. So that'll be kind of fun to put them to the fire a little bit and see how well they do in mock interviews. All right, what else about retention? I'm going to try to wrap up sort of quickly so I don't hog all the time. We are definitely, in addition to summer internships at biotech companies, we're definitely interested in getting undergraduate, if not full research projects. We're probably not set up to do full research projects, but some manner of undergrad projects that the students can say they got lab experience, meaningful lab experience. To that end, this past summer, Jin and myself from biotech, but also there were a few other of our NOVA colleagues, attended a DNA sequencing workshop at James Madison University, JMU. And these are actually some data we got from that workshop where we were isolating DNA. This picture on the right was isolating DNA from various swabs, because we were isolating bacteria from various swabs throughout the room. So it could have been a doorknob or door handle, could have been your desk, could have been your glasses if you wear glasses. Please don't judge me. For me, it was the inside of my shoe. And so you would swab those, isolate the bacteria, and then with a barcoding technique that we were taught, these are the species of bacteria that were found in the workshop participants. I think I was either 7 or 9. I'm one of these two. I don't remember if I was 7 or 9, so it's either this one or this one was me. Sampling of bacteria from my shoe. So why do we do this? Well, so we wanted to get professional skill, we wanted to get technical skills training for our own faculty, but we wanted to be able to share out what we learned with NOVA faculty and with high school bioscience or just science teachers, and even our own students. So from this workshop, which involved nanopore sequencing, we tried some nanopore sequencing. And so this was actually at the Alexandria campus. These 3 young ladies are currently in the biotech program. I already mentioned it's on a different campus. And so these guys had to drive up to my home campus because that's where I was. And so this was at the Alexandria campus. And we tried a little DNA sequencing. Admittedly, our reagents were badly expired. Okay, so I will admit our reagents were badly expired. We tried anyway because might as well. And down below, you see some very, very rough, rude, raw sequences that we're able to generate. The only issue, we tried to compare them, blast search and all that. And what these were supposed to be is Rubisco from plants. And if you do blast these sequences, they're probably a little too short, to be honest. We didn't get expected matches. We got some algae species, which are also photosynthetic in that case, and some other plant species, but I don't feel confident saying, yeah, we nailed it first try. I wouldn't say that. However, it was our first go through with the technology. So 2 things to do about this. This summer, we're going to have probably 5 biotech students joining me to do some of the sequencing stuff with not expired reagents. And also one of the 2 professors at Madison who did the training workshop, we're having her come to NOVA to do another training for faculty and for our students before we even try again. So we have hopefully a better idea. And then if you can sequence this, sky's the limit. You can sequence all kinds of cool things, and that's the whole point. So we don't necessarily expect to publish, but just to get students some real meaningful lab experience. And then ideally, if things work out, maybe we can incorporate nanopore sequencing into the curriculum, which would be, long term. Okay, a little bit more data, and then I'll move on quickly. I don't expect us to read through all of this, but in addition to Involve, we also have an external evaluator, which is pretty common, and she also does surveys of our students. These ones, we only had 8 participants. As I mentioned, our group is bigger than this, but there were 8 participants that day or whatever who actually participated in, how evaluations go. Nobody likes to do evaluations. That's just the truth of it. And so we didn't get high participation, but we did get at least data. And these are numbers out of a score of 10, a score of 5 again. So things like questions about STEM. I'm sure of myself when I do science. That's a good question to ask, by the way. So what, 4 out of 5? It's okay. It's not great. I would consider a career in science. That's a little higher. Science will be important to me in my life's work. That's pretty high. Here's one. I can handle most subjects well, but I cannot do a good job with science. That's good that it's a low score, because I guess with that, you would interpret that by saying, no, I do feel confident I can handle science as well. I apologize for the weird formatting. This is actually taken from two different tables or two different pages of the table. So the formatting, looks a little weird, but I'll just give you guys a second. I don't really want to read all this to you, but you can kind of peruse some of the questions that our evaluator asked our students. A lot of this has to do with confidence, right? Self-confidence in your ability to do science or STEM in general, and maybe what you can do about it. So communication skills, asking for help, that sort of thing. All right, so I'm actually going to turn over, I think, the rest of this to my co-PI, Jin, who can talk about our capstone seminar and then basically wrap up for us. Okay.
Okay, I'll be fast. So capstone used to be taught by myself, and I turned it over to Harvey, who is kind of retired from the industry for good. So he kind of redesigned the course, and so right now the students actually form teams, and they kind of play the role as the research and development research associates, and they come up with a product idea, and they're kind of doing this pitch presentation to the entire advisory board members, and the board members function as an executive board of a large company, and evaluate the student idea and give them feedbacks. So students actually are watching the deliberation of the board member and actually learn from this process. Dave, next, please.
Sure.
And our college is kind of lucky to kind of located in the DMV area, which is a biotechnology hub in the nation. And so over the years, we kind of construct lots of kind of relationship with the local companies. I mean, this is the incomplete list of them. You can see there's some leading companies in the field, and there's some very promising startups. And our industrial collaborators or partners, they provide us with many different support. So, for example, they provide us with advisory board members, and also they provide us with internship opportunities and also jobs, most importantly. And also they give us help us organize student field trips to their sites. Okay, next, please.
Sure. They're also going to be helping us with our mentorship program as well. So we'll have industry mentors for our students.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide.
So here are some pictures taken during the field trips to the companies. So the two pictures on the left taken at Thermo Fisher, which is a kind of industrial leader in biotechnology. And you can see the left bottom picture shows the career panel discussion. So students not only seeing the technology, cutting edge technology at the site, but they also get to know the professionals and scientists in those companies and really learn what kind of skills and career paths they can take in the industry. And on the right, it's a field trip to the Quest Diagnostics, which help us to place lots of our interns. And this is only half of the group because, Dr. Fernandez is leading the other group. They kind of split us up. And they are very happy to see like different departments in that company. And actually, the students actually making decisions which departments they're going to be interning after the field trip. Okay. So these are all very exciting experience for the students, and really motivated them to pursue the career further. So that's it.
Yeah, so that's our project. I had a question slide, but then it seems that we're going to do Q&A at the end of the second talk. So in that case, I'll kind of stop sharing my screen, and that's it.
Thank you so much. At this time, please join me in welcoming our second Project Talk speaker, Dr. Orlando DeLange, Project PI and Acting Dean of Career and Technical Education at Shoreline Community College. The title of his presentation is Biomanufacturing Training Programs and Growing the Immunotherapy Workforce. Orlando?
Thank you, Dion. Okay, just gonna screen share. I realize I put in a different title on my first slide, but the topic is really the same. And so I'm gonna have a, oh, there we go. And now, like basically, maybe not so dissimilar from what David was going through, kind of give you just a bit of an overview of our programs here at Shoreline, and then talk about the specific work we've been doing with our ATE project. You know, in the interest of time, some of this I'm just going to touch over. I'd be happy to like share the slides afterwards if anyone is interested. But I'm mostly, I think, keep. It's a number of different topics because really our grant, it had quite a few different goals. That all connect at a higher level, but are pretty different. But I want to definitely talk about a workforce report, a kit loan program, and a bit about our Essentials of Biomanufacturing certificate, because those are areas we've been really working on in the last few years. You know, I won't go through all of this, but my background is in plant molecular biology. That's kind of what I did PhD research on and postdoctoral research before I came to Shoreline to teach biotechnology. So I'm normally one of the faculty members on an interim dean position this year. So I've been a lot of the stuff, you know, particularly biomanufacturing has been new to me in the last few years and really exciting to learn about. And so, yeah, brief overview, Shoreline, just if you're not familiar with us, Shoreline is just north of Seattle. So we're within that greater Seattle area, and that really orients how we think about our biotechnology careers in the region. And it is, you know, our program, our department has existed for a long time, really well established. But we've been doing a lot of new things in the last few years that has been really exciting for us. And that includes, we got a new building at the college, you know, that opened last year and included some dedicated teaching labs, which we use for a range of courses. The particular focus is biomanufacturing, and it's been really exciting. Just a few snapshots. We've got some great equipment in there, cell culture hoods, clean benches, wave bioreactor that you can see on the picture in the right. And, you know, this doesn't look very fancy. It's hard to take a good picture of, but one of the things that's been really nice was having a simulated airlock that we can use for when we're doing our biomanufacturing training to go through all the gowning steps with the students in a kind of physical setting that feels a lot more like what you'd find in a manufacturing facility. Okay, and then so briefly, our programs, you can kind of group it into 3 areas in terms of the credit-bearing programs. We have a biotechnology lab specialist, which sounds, you know, pretty similar to the biotechnology lab technician program at Nova, where we have a 2-year associate's degree. We have a 1-year certificate version of it that really focuses on those skills that you'd need to work as a technician, particularly in an R&D lab within biotechnology. And then pretty different from that, we have our Essentials of Biomanufacturing certificate, which is only a few years old, but it's going pretty strong, which is a much shorter certificate, just 10 weeks, so 1 quarter, hands-on curriculum. It's pretty it's only like a few hours a week, so it's something you can easily do alongside full-time employment. And we cover like aseptic technique, intro to regulatory affairs, QA/QC, bioreactors, and it's about giving some basic skills to get students into entry-level positions in biomanufacturing. And then we also have some opportunities for high schoolers. We have a year-long running START program, so that's, you know, students will take basically an after-school course once a week or twice a week, where they'll come in and do lab skills classes that give a great overview to biotechnology generally at Shoreline. And then what's really new and exciting is that now we have a program that kind of builds on that for students who want to go straight into the industry, they do that year-long running START series kind of at the end of high school. Then they'll go straight into a paid internship with a local employer, specifically Fred Hutch Cancer Center. And then they'll come and do 1 year of courses at Shoreline. That's a few kind of general biology courses and some biotechnology specific courses. And then they'll get a certificate at the end of that, which is guarantees them an interview at Fred Hutch Cancer Center for a lab technician job. So that's exciting. That's not, you know, the focus of what I'm going to talk about, but happy if anyone wants to reach out about any of this, let me know. Okay, yeah, so we've had, you know, maybe I'll just basically say complete personnel turnover has been kind of the theme at Shoreline in the last few years, which We still managed to do quite a lot, which I've been surprised and happy with, despite quite a lot of disruption. So you can see me, Rachel Rawle, who's our department chair, is also here in the meeting. And you know, I think some of you know some of the folks who've been running things in the past. It's exciting. Jan Chalupny, who's really led our like kit loan program for a long time, which I'll talk about briefly. She's here. Hi, Jan. So there's folks like who are still kind of involved in many ways. Sadly, that's not true for Dina Kabarek, who I don't know if folks who worked with in the past, who sadly passed away in 2022, which has been, you know, a huge loss for the program, for all the students, because she really built so much of like what that kind of particular that biotechnology lab specialist program as it currently exists. Okay. So our ATE, so that's like, you know, a little bit about Shoreline and our programs. Our ATE grant was focused on immunotherapy. It was awarded back in 2021, but we've had a lot of disruption from that personnel turnover. We do have a no-cost extension till November 2025, but that's really just to help us kind of like wrap up and disseminate. So we're really rounding things out right now. And our big picture goal was to grow the US cell and immunotherapy workforce. That's yeah. And, you know, breaking that down, we had some more specific goals. One was to identify gaps that exist between workforce demand and the supply of skilled technicians, kind of do a kind of deep dive and understand what does that look like at the national level. And then we wanted to just increase the number of people from underrepresented groups and high school students in particular who are exposed to immunotherapy careers and to become like a knowledge source in this sector. Okay, so I'll start with that, like the workforce reports that address that first goal. So I'm not going to give you like everything. I'll share the report. Actually, Dion, if you'd be willing to share the link in the chat to this report, that'd be great. So folks, you know, it's been out there for a little bit now. You can definitely read through it, but I'll give a few highlights. And this was work done by Guy Hamilton and John Carisse, together with like a nationwide industry advisory board. And yeah, so, you know, it's all about cell and immunotherapy industry, just in case, you know, that might not be like, what exactly is that? So it's basically subsector of biomanufacturing, or at least, you know, for our interests, that's how we're thinking about it. We're thinking about that like manufacturing workforce component of it. In general, a cell therapy is any treatment that involves transplanting cells into patients. That can be pretty broad. And an immunotherapy is any therapy that targets the immune system rather than diseased cells or pathogens. And the products that actually do that are almost always biologics, meaning that they are things that you have to grow and produce inside cells. So that's why I was just saying, you know, we're thinking about this as really a subset of the biomanufacturing sector from a workforce perspective. And that's what you can see in the graphic here, that really, you know, within biomanufacturing, there's a number of different sectors. Till now, like the biggest one, and I think still the biggest one, is that therapeutic enzymes and protein sector, as well as some of these vaccines and monoclonal antibodies under traditional immunotherapy. And then there's some kind of really new types of immunotherapies that have emerged, and cell-based therapies that are new but already pretty established and growing part of the sector. Okay, and so what this was already published, I think it was end of last year, sorry, 2023 already. I forget that it's 2025 now. The labor market analysis, which I'll go through a few key findings, and then I'll also share just like a little preview of a follow-up report that's going to be coming out soon. So one thing is that what are the range of job types and titles that exist? Because cell and immunotherapy technician is not really like a job title that you will find. It's really a way of thinking about a range of related titles. So that was one of the things, just what are these jobs? And these were titles that were kind of using different kind of databases to search, but validated by the advisory committee to check, like, do these actually make sense? And I think most of them, nothing too surprising there, you know, research associate, laboratory technician, laboratory assistant, quality control associate. You might well expect. Medical laboratory technician was like, you know, a bit more surprising, but that was something that the advisors confirmed, like, yes, this is an area where that medical lab tech field intersects with biotechnology, which we're often, you know, like at Shoreline, we have a medical laboratory technician program that's completely separate, and we think about those fields as really separate, but here they can really combine, particularly when it comes to cell therapies. You'll need medical lab technicians will be involved in the deliveries of those therapies too. So these are relevant. Key finding, which was kind of a bit expected, but good to see, was this is an area of real growth across the nation. In the report, it's broken down by, I can't remember how many states now, I think 10, like the top 10 for growth there, you can find state level data, but this was just nationwide. This only goes up to 2021. And, you know, I think depending on how things play out in the biotech industry over the coming year, I know it's an area of uncertainty in research funding right now, which would particularly impact this area, you know, in cell and immunotherapies, where there's a lot of early stage stuff that's maybe still going through trials, and that's really reliant on research funding. There may be a bit of a tailoring, but I think the trend is really strong. So I don't expect any change in that overall trend. And then we looked at what are the skills, you know, ignore the job titles for a second and just like what skills are employers looking for. And I don't think this is too surprising that like the top skill in this area that employers were looking for was cell culture. And then pretty closely followed by good manufacturing practices. So it's interesting, it's the ability to do cell culture and also working in that very regulated, careful manufacturing environment. Quality assurance and control just below it. So that's that kind of gives you a picture of what these jobs look like. It's people who are want people who can work with cell culture and do it in that kind of biomanufacturing approach where you're working with good sterile technique, you've got good documentation skills, things like that. And we also looked at education. And just like the minimum advertised education requirement on the job postings that we kind of validated. Oh, well, yeah, I wasn't the one doing this. Guy and John validated as necessary for these positions. And I think you can see like a lot of them are looking for bachelor's degrees. So I think it's worth being honest about that when we have programs where we're producing like associate's degrees. Some of these jobs, you're going to need more than an associate's degree to access, but that's not true for all of them. So there is a mix. There's definitely are positions out there where you don't need that bachelor's degree. And then there are some where you will. And I mean, I know at Shoreline, we actually have quite a lot of post-bac students that we help train, give them extra lab skills to get into the industry. So it's worth thinking about, like, you know, there's a lot of jobs that particularly thinking about those cell culture, GMP quality control skills could be really useful things that students with a bachelor's degree, maybe in biology, if they could build those skills, that can help them access this industry. Okay. So that was a little bit about like the report that's already out there, and there's a lot more details. You can look into it. And then there's a follow-up report coming soon about how to link, basically like what to do about that. And just high-level findings is that in most cases, it's probably not going to be worth developing a just like targeted from ground up cell and immunotherapy program, because so many of those skills are also relevant to other kinds of jobs within the broader biotechnology sector. And then what's the report's going to dive into is like how you can, if you don't already have some sort of biotechnology offering, how can you make basically make use of the existing general STEM courses that you have, help draw out and enhance the transferable skills to this sector from those courses, and add like individual courses, a few courses that can create like a short certificate that could be added onto some other credential to help students access this industry. Okay, so in the interest of time, I will just quickly move on to our kit loan program to talk again, just briefly. This is a program that's goes back a long time now, multiple decades, that was initiated through a partnership with Amgen as an Amgen Biotech Experience site. And then we expanded the offerings. So this was work that Jan did with those NSF funding, specifically in the areas of cancer biology and biomanufacturing. And just, if this whole kind of kit loan idea, if it's not familiar, it's just giving a whole kind of package of materials to high school teachers that they can use to implement these topics into their lessons through hands-on mixture of, you know, hands-on lab skills with material to back that up. So it's curriculum, but it's also the physical stuff. It's consumables, manipulables, equipment. We actually like give, incubators for teachers who don't have that sort of thing, wetware, so like cells, plasmids, that sort of thing, and also professional development. So training the teachers in how to deliver the content, and just had to help them build up their own confidence in the lab skills that they're going to have to teach the students. That was, you know, Jan's work was really crucial to that. So we don't have funding anymore. Like Jan now no longer works at Shoreline, although thankfully she's been really continuing to help us with this work that I'll talk about in a second of kind of where do we go from here. So we're basically right now in the process of handing over almost all of these materials and this kind of curriculum to partners at Fred Hutch Cancer Center, because they for a long time have had a kind of similar type of program called Strategic Education Partnership. And they're going to take on and kind of offer a lot of what we were offering through their platform. We are still planning to continue to offer the biomanufacturing kit specifically, because that has become a real like area of focus for us. And we think that we can, like, that's maybe like a small enough niche that we can continue to support it just with our current personnel. And the biomanufacturing kit, so that was developed as part of this ATE grant, and there's different modules that guide students through. It's kind of like gets the students to simulate being biomanufacturing technicians, and they don't just do the kind of more that they basically go through producing and purifying a GFP protein, but doing that in a very biomanufacturing oriented way, where they learn a lot about like QC and documentation in the process. And it kind of, there's what I'm showing on the left is a Canvas course, which like goes through the curriculum, but it's also backed up by physical materials. And I just say for now, like, you could email me, email biomanufacturing@shoreline.edu. If you're interested in getting access to these materials, if you're in Texas and you might already be coming to training that Jennifer is organizing for Texas high school teachers this July, will be guiding teachers through this curriculum. Okay. Briefly, evaluation data, there's a lot that could go through, but just we found that, yeah, like these kits were effective. We did find that students did really improve their understanding of biomanufacturing topics generally, and also specific areas of biomanufacturing after working through this curriculum, which is, you know, always good to see. Oh yeah, so I'll just, some lessons learned for this that I think could be worth thinking about if anyone who's like wanting to do similar things, is that for the teachers that we worked with, when we talked to them about this, many of them said that a primary benefit was saving them time. Like the teachers were so strapped for time that they want to have to develop all of this stuff themselves. So it's not like they couldn't do this. It wasn't like this was, for a lot of them, they did already have a lot of expertise in this area. It's that we were really helping them out by just like giving them sort of a packaged thing they can go and work with. But we also found that kind of build it and they will come approach is only ever going to reach those least in need of support. So like the teachers that we worked with did come from a range of schools, but it's not like we were going to be particularly targeting those schools that currently have like the least access to biotechnology education, unless you kind of build that into your approach from the bottom up. And we did find that like we reached a lot of students in high schools this way. That didn't obviously translate into a boost of enrollment for our programs at Shoreline. And so like if that's actually your goal with a program like this, you have to really think carefully about how are you going to make that connection much more explicit and build that in. Okay, I think in the interest of time, I'll just kind of like give you some headlines and you can reach out if you're interested in any of this. We're partnering currently with a local community biology lab to see if that works as a good recruitment pipeline. So if that sounds interesting, let me know. And our biomanufacturing certificate, I was just gonna, maybe the one thing that I'd really want to highlight that was pretty exciting was that we just IBESTed this. So IBEST, I think, is that kind of title is Washington specific, but I think multiple states now have something similar, where you basically get some additional state funding to have a team teaching approach where you have more than one instructor on the classroom, and that second instructor focuses on basically English language skills and basic education. And that has allowed us to really open up to a broader range of students, particularly students who might be coming in with an English language level that previously wouldn't have allowed them to succeed. And this is now in our second quarter running that. And I think it's been really successful so far. So if that's something you're kind of like interested in about, let me know. Yeah, So I just like gonna end on, we are interested in doing something like using, like as we wrap up this grant towards the end of summer, for anyone who's kind of interested in biomanufacturing, kind of any of the things I talked about, particularly in terms of like the kit loan, the biomanufacturing certificate, the programs that we have here at Shoreline, and you feel like you'd want to come to Shoreline and engage, kind of see a bit more what we do and engage in conversations around that. We're still working out a plan for that right now, but you could let me know if you'd be interested so I can keep you in the loop. Yeah, and I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Orlando. And if I could draw everyone's attention to the chat, there are quite a few links that are in there. And then first of all, I want to thank our speakers. We have just about 2 minutes, and so I know that that's really tight. But Elizabeth, you have your hand up.
Actually, I was just clapping because I thought all the talks were very interesting. And I'm in the Seattle area, so I was particularly intrigued, of course, about Shoreline, but also both talks. Very good. Lots of good information there. And I'm looking forward to reading that report.
I wanted to apologize, particularly to Orlando. I'm sorry, I kind of spaced on the time, so our talk went long. That's my fault. So
That's fine.
The topics today were engaging, and again, David, you hit on those 3 buckets that everyone's always trying to target. And Orlando, there was a comment from Yingsu about mentioning high schools and then the kits that you all do. You have a lot of resources. So I'd like to take this time on behalf of the Innovate Bio Leadership team. Thank you for your project talk presentations, and also to our audience. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to next week's project talks and for your continued engagement. And again, I appreciate your time on this Friday afternoon. Thank you to our speakers, and we wish everyone a peaceful weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you.
thanks.
Bye.